Alright, I know what you're thinking. You're probably all like, what the fuck, Max? What kind of shit is this? Have you not played the game? Do you not know that humanity is extinct? What kind of shit clickbait is this? Give me a chance, alright? I promise you, the thumbnail doesn't lie. And if by the end of this video, you're still not convinced, then you can dislike all you want and spam the comments. I will accept it as my failure of not being able to show you the swan that is the ugly duckling that is number 2 and that we call A2. But if you are, then you have to leave a like, cause fuck, I busted my ass off for this video. I hope that you'll see how A2 is the true hero of the story, cause fuck, she's underrated. So underrated. To understand why A2 is the savior of humanity in the context of NieR Automata, we need to dig into the game and its creator. Automata, unlike other games, is a game without purpose. Unlike most other RPGs, where the main character is pushed on a journey where the story is basically narrated to you, NieR tells you its story with a more subtle approach. You, as the player, experience the story through the characters and the pieces of history that you discover along the way. And this aspect, NieR is one of the most realistic games I've ever played. This is personally why I've always kept my distance from this game. Until not too long ago, as you can see. I'd like to think that a lot of people play games to escape reality, to experience an entirely new world from a third-person perspective that lets you judge and experience things without any repercussions. In NieR, the opposite happens. Instead of you judging the game judges you, and through that concept forces you to judge yourself. The game has a concept at its core that builds up the story. That concept is the imitation of humanity. Whether physically, through the androids being modeled to look like humans, or psychologically, through the machines constantly trying to imitate their behavior. I don't know about you, but throughout my playthrough, there were multiple times when I looked at certain behaviors while frowning at their stupidity, just to quickly reflect that in that situation, I would probably have done the same thing. But no matter how good the imitations are, they still feel like imitations. All of them except for A2. When you start the game, you feel sympathy for the main characters, that is, to B and 9S, the two characters that seem to develop a sense of emotion and humanity throughout the game. Not only that, but through your first and second playthroughs, ending A and B, you're even presented with the idea that the machines might also be developing into something more alive. As you go into your third playthrough though, everything starts to change. The happy endings that you get for the first two playthroughs are the last ones you will ever get, as the veil of ignorance is lifted. The nightmare that was thought to be finished has actually just begun. As 2B dies and 9S falls apart, as the player you start to see the truth behind the liveliness of not only the machines, but also the androids. You get to understand that the machines are simply repeating the same behavior without learning, just trying over and over to imitate human behavior. As you reach the final hours of your playthrough, when the final pieces of truth are revealed, symbolized by 9S losing his bandana, a bunch of questions are answered. If we take the same approach that Yoko Taro took to make his game, backwards writing, I believe we will have a clear picture of what the game tries to show us. When Yoko Taro writes his scripts for his games, he uses a special method. He always starts with the end and then builds his way back up to the beginning. He calls this method backwards writing. By using the same method, we can find the key aspects that make the game what it is. The first thing we notice is that A2 seems to be the central point that allows the story to come to its conclusion. But let's leave that for later. For now, let's focus on what we discover about 2B coming straight from A2's mouth.
The official designation is 2E, number 2 type E. They were a special class of members designed to execute YoRHa units.
This last revelation is like the last stroke that makes the painting whole. As we rewind from the end, we can see the subtle hints that piece everything together. Through this last confrontation between A2 and 9S, we learned that 2B, or rather 2E, was made to kill 9S. Through the other E model that we encounter in the game through a quest, we can infer that 2E was made to keep 9S in check. These things would explain how their personalities were crafted. 9S, an innocent android in appearance and mindset, as we can see from his descent into madness, whose curiosity allows for discovery of the unknown. And 2B, a cold and calculative soldier who is doomed to kill her partner. This whole idea of the forged personalities is specially reinforced with the operators, where operators 210 and 60 are polar opposites. They seem to be made to complement 9S and 2B, where 210 is cold and calculative to keep 9S's curiosity in check. 60 is more outgoing and helps 2B with her grief. We even, by reading the documents scattered throughout the game, get to see that the commander also doesn't escape this, as there are things that she doesn't know. But where we see this engineering the most is within the twins' backstory. Following the incident, the Devol and Popola models were not dismantled. However, in order to prevent further unexpected behavior, they underwent a memory wipe. Furthermore, they were programmed to generate constant feelings of guilt. In other words, they were engineered as martyrs, sacrifices, that were programmed to feel guilt. A guilt that they feel till their last breath.
Say, did we manage to help? You did.
This is why, while playing the game, it seems so realistic in its presentation, and yet still feels out of place. You get all these characters that look real, but at the same time don't feel real. The whole story centers around everyone trying to become human, whether it be through mindless copying like the machines, or through understanding emotions like androids. Everybody tries in their own way, everyone but A2. The character who single-handedly saves the world. Isn't it ironic? The character that doesn't give a shit, pardon my language, the only one who never tried to become human, is the most human of them all. She single-handedly saves humanity. She is the only one who exhibits a compassionate, sympathetic, or generous behavior or disposition. The quality or state of being humane. She acts and behaves like a human. She doesn't discover her emotions, she lives them. When she's betrayed by YoRHa and witnesses all her friends die at the hands of the program in the tower, she doesn't give up. But she doesn't get blinded by rage either like 9S. She simply lives on with the memories of her friends. She gets angry, but she doesn't get swept up by her emotion, unable to understand them. She moves forward. And the only time she doesn't is when she shows compassion.
I'll take care of everything. Pod, take care of 9S.
What of you, A2?
I've still got something I need to do. You go ahead.
Acknowledge.
So then, what happened to command?
Number 2, go! I can handle!
No! Number 4!
A2's past is filled with grief, betrayal, and suffering, which explains her wariness and her overall unfriendly attitude. She was betrayed by androids and machines alike, but despite that, she can still forgive and sympathize with them. She even develops a relationship with her pod, which none of the other characters have done, despite them possessing pods for far longer than her. Throughout the whole game, you kill machines indiscriminately, but the first time you meet a sentient machine as A2 is also the first time you, as a player, are given the choice to spare or kill one. I don't know, it's almost like you can make decisions like an actual human being. The important thing is not whether you choose to spare or kill Pascal, but that as a character, A2 makes that decision. It's not an order, not an impulse out of anger, but a decision that she thinks over. She decides whether or not Pascal is worthy of her compassion, and that's how humans work. The last time she shows her compassion is also the most meaningful one. This is where we see the limit of what humanity can accomplish, and the reason why I would dare say that A2 is even more humane than most humans. The limit of compassion, sympathy, and generosity, self-sacrifice. By choosing to play as A2 in the last boss fight, contrary to what you might believe, you can't survive no matter what you do. A2's humanity simply overshadows yours. Contrarily to 9S's decision, A2 doesn't kill 9S, but sacrifices herself for the slightest chance of 9S surviving, even if it might be meaningless. As Pod 042 explains it so well, a future is not given to you. It is something that you must take for yourself. Does this remind you of anything yet? Yes, A2 is given the same choice you are given at the end of the game, and she chooses humanity. She pushes through the cycle for the slightest chance to change the future. She sacrifices herself to help someone she barely knows, and probably doesn't really like. I mean, have you seen how 9S treats her? But she does it all to fulfill a promise. She sees herself in 2B, also being a commander. Through 9S, she sees a chance to atone for her past sins of failing to protect her comrades. She experiences the full spectrum of human emotion: pain, guilt, anger, depression, hope, and finally, acceptance. What NieR Automata? No, what A2 teaches us is that if you spend your whole life searching for meaning, you'll always come to the same questions that no one can answer. So look around, live, stop asking so many questions, and help spread your humanity. Because in the end, that's what makes humanity thrive and survive. And that's when you realize that A2 isn't an ugly duckling, but in fact a beautiful swan. Finally, as a final homage from the devs, you realize that the final soundtrack doesn't seem to only be talking about 2B and 9S, but also A2. And with this, I'd like you to listen once more to the second part of the final soundtrack of the game and tell me whether it still talks about 2B or A2.